I froze behind the door, holding my breath like the air itself might betray me. Inside the break room, two voices kept dropping to a whisper. The kind people use when they're sure they're alone. "We can't keep pretending it's nothing," one of them said. The other answered, tight and fast, "I know. But if they find out we talked." Then my name slid into the sentence like a blade. "It's about me." For a second I felt relieved because I thought this was gossip. But the next words weren't petty. They were careful, strategic. What they said next made my stomach drop. I leaned closer, heart hammering, and heard, "We need to decide what to do before it's too late." Let me back up, because the part started days earlier. At that moment, with my name hanging in the air, I realized I had two options: walk in and pretend I'd heard nothing, or stand there and listen to something I wasn't meant to know. I chose the second, and I'm glad I did, because what started as a few strange comments turned into the clearest warning I've ever gotten. In this story, you'll find out exactly why my name came up in that serious talk, who pushed it, and what it exposed about the people around me. And if you've ever felt like people were talking around you, like conversations stopped when you entered a room, stay to the end, because the pattern is always there before the proof shows up. I honestly thought it was gossip. I thought someone was annoyed with me, maybe planning some petty drama. But it wasn't about drama at all. It was about risk. Back then, everything felt normal. And that's what makes the shift so terrifying. Here's what my life looked like before it turned. Before any of this, my world was simple. A small office on the second floor of a medical billing company. The kind of place where everyone knows your coffee order and your weekend plans. We worked in pods, shared snacks, complained about printers, and took lunch at the same two spots because nobody wanted to think too hard at noon. It felt safe, not because the building was secure, but because the people were familiar. The two voices in that break room belonged to Chris and Lena. Chris was my desk neighbor, the one who always saved me a seat in meetings and slid me the notes when I missed something. Lena ran the schedule board and acted like the older sister of the group, sharp, organized, and strangely protective when someone from another department got pushy. We weren't best friends, but we were close enough that I never had to wonder where I stood. That's why the shift bothered me. I'm the person they loop in. If there's a last-minute change, I get the heads up. If there's a joke, I'm in on it. So when conversations started happening a little farther away, and my name wasn't called across the room the way it usually was, it didn't feel like normal busyness. It felt deliberate. Even the group chat changed. Fewer memes, more private side threads. When I walked up, keyboards stopped, smiles looked rehearsed, and I'd get a quick all good without eye contact. I told myself I was imagining it. I was wrong. Then the first weird thing happened. Chris was the calm one. If the office caught fire, he'd probably grab the extinguisher and ask if anyone needed water. He followed rules without acting like a hall monitor, and people listened to him because he rarely raised his voice. Lena was the opposite, blunt, restless, always scanning for problems. She talked fast when she was nervous, and she got nervous more than she admitted. If something felt off, she'd say it out loud, even if it made the room uncomfortable. That honesty made her useful, but it also put her on the edge of the group. And then there was me, not the loudest, not the leader, but observant enough to notice who got invited into which conversation. There was an unspoken hierarchy in our pod. Chris sat near the manager's office, Lena controlled the schedule, and everyone else kind of orbited them. Most days it was harmless, until it wasn't. Looking back, I should have remembered the first time my name got treated like a problem. Months earlier, an envelope with printed customer data showed up in the wrong tray. Nobody blamed me directly, but the manager asked me, not Chris, not Lena, to walk through my process. I thought it was random. I thought I'd just been nearby. Now I understand why Chris had gone quiet that day, and why Lena wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't realize that old moment was about to matter, and it scared me. By Wednesday, the weirdness had a rhythm. I'd walk up to the pod and conversations would clip shut, like someone had hit mute. Chris would smile too quickly. Lena would look past me at her screen as if it suddenly demanded her full attention. Even the group chat felt colder, reactions instead of replies. Inside jokes that started and ended without me. At lunch I tested it. I sat where I always sat and asked casually if anyone wanted to split an order. Chris said he'd already eaten. Lena said she might later, then stood up and left her phone face down on the table. When she came back, she avoided my eyes the way people do when they're trying not to lie. Later that afternoon, Mia from payroll rolled her chair over to my desk. She kept her voice low, but her face was wide with that guilty curiosity people get when they know something they shouldn't. "Hey," she said, stretching the word like she was buying time. "This is gonna sound weird, but, your name came up earlier." My stomach tightened. "In what way?" She lifted one shoulder, a half shrug. "I don't know. I just heard it and thought you should know." I could marched straight to Chris and Lena and demanded answers. Part of me wanted to. But another part, the part that had watched people go silent the second I approached, knew I'd get polished smiles and nothing else. So I nodded like it didn't matter, thanked Mia, and acted normal. I even laughed at a joke I missed. Inside, I decided to wait, to listen, to figure out what they were preparing for. That choice to wait almost backfired. After Mia's warning, I started noticing things I'd brushed off before. Chris began closing the file room door whenever he took a call, even though he used to pace the hallway. Lena kept her calendar screen angled away from me, like it held something fragile. People asked how I was doing. Too often, too carefully, as if they were checking for cracks. Twice that day, someone accidentally walked me to my car. The first time it was sweet, almost protective. The second time it felt staged, like they were making sure I left when I said I would. I told myself they were just being nice. But I'd also seen teams do this when they were managing a problem, not supporting a person. Then came the questions. Not normal small talk, questions with edges. "Did you go straight home last night?" Chris asked, catching himself and adding, "I mean, after work." Lena asked if I'd ever noticed anyone hanging around the building. Another coworker asked what time I usually arrived, then laughed like it was random. "Near the printer." I heard Lena whisper, "If it happens again, we document it." Document what? When I stepped closer, she switched topics so fast it gave me whiplash. That evening, a notification flashed on Chris's phone. "Don't mention the name in chat. Too risky." He flipped it over, but I'd already seen enough. By the time I heard them talking for real, I was bracing for it. By Friday, the office felt like it was holding its breath. The phones rang. Keyboards still clicked, but every sound seemed wrapped in cotton. I went to refill my water bottle and saw the break room door pulled almost shut, a sliver of light cutting the hallway. I heard Chris first, calm but lower than usual. We can't ignore the risk anymore, Lena answered, and her voice had that sharp edge it gets when she's trying not to panic. I'm not saying we go nuclear. I'm saying we stop acting like it'll fix itself. I should turned around. Instead, I stopped where the carpet met the tile and listened. The break room smelled like burnt coffee and lemon cleaner, but underneath it I caught that scent you get when you're nervous. Lena's laugh, usually loud, was gone. Even Chris sounded different, like he'd made a decision and hated it. My hand hovered over the handle. Still, Chris sighed. If we're wrong, we ruin someone for nothing. Do you understand that? And if we're right? Lena shot back. Then we're the idiots who saw it coming and did nothing. A chair scraped. Through the gap I could see them, not sitting like they usually did at lunch, but standing on opposite sides of the table. Chris's arms were folded tight to his chest. Lena kept rubbing her thumb across her phone screen, over and over, like she was trying to erase what was there. Karis said my name then, plain as day, and I felt my stomach drop. Not because it was surprising anymore, but because he said it the way you say a diagnosis. Lena lowered her voice even more. They asked about the schedule, specifically about when they're alone. That's not normal. Chris's reply was a murmur. It could be nothing. It's not nothing, she said. It's a pattern. I leaned in, my pulse thudding in my ears, waiting for the missing piece. Instead, I caught fragments. Screenshots, policy, quiet for now. Then Chris said, we need to decide what to do about them. At that point, my brain filled in the worst, and I still wasn't right. For the next hour, I moved through the afternoon like my body was at work and my mind was somewhere else. Risk, report, policy. Those words bounced around my skull, and the simplest explanation took over. They were building a case against me. Maybe the envelope months ago had come back. Maybe someone had decided I was sloppy, or worse, untrustworthy. I replayed every interaction from the last week, searching for the moment I'd messed up. Had I logged out too late? Said something wrong in a meeting? Looked at someone's screen by accident? The more I searched, the more guilty I felt, which made no sense, because I hadn't actually done anything, so I tested them. I waited until Chris was alone at the copier and said, light and joking, feels like everyone's been super serious lately. Something going on? He didn't laugh. He stared at the paper tray like it had answers and said, just busy. Then, too quickly, you okay? With Lena, I tried a different angle. Hey, are we still doing lunch next week? I asked, like nothing had changed. She blinked like she'd forgotten lunch existed. Yeah, sure, she said, then added, don't stay late today, okay? That was the first crack. If this was gossip, why did it sound like a warning? This is where most people would stop. Decide it's office drama and let it blow over. But one detail didn't add up. Nobody seemed angry at me. They seemed scared for me. And that detail dragged me into the real reason. After that, I couldn't pretend anymore. I waited until the end of the day, when most of the office had thinned out, and I caught Lena at the schedule board. Tell me what's going on, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I heard risk. If this is about me, I deserve to know. Her face drained of color. She looked toward Chris's desk, then nodded once, like she'd been holding her breath for a week and finally let it out. We stepped into a small conference room and Chris shut the door behind us. No jokes, no softening it. He pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. On the screen were screenshots of emails and messages I'd never seen. The subject line on one read, urgent. Employee verification, confidential. It was addressed to Lena, and my name was bolded at the top with a note. Priority. Discuss internally before informing employee. I laughed once, sharp and confused. Chris shook his head. It's pretending to be. Look at the address. The domain was one letter off, so close my eyes had to focus twice to see it. Lena swallowed. Then there were the calls. Someone rang the front desk asking what time you leave, what car you drive, whether you ever close alone. They said they were family, and it was an emergency. She pushed another screenshot forward, a missed call log and a voicemail transcription. My name, my department. My usual arrival time. Details only someone nearby would know. I felt cold all over. So you thought I was in trouble. That's what we thought at first, Chris admitted. Like you were being investigated. Like we were supposed to watch you. But you weren't, Lena said, leaning in. You were being set up. Whoever sent this wanted us to treat you like a problem so you wouldn't notice what they were really doing. I'd assumed this was petty office drama. A complaint. A rumor. Instead, it was a blueprint. Someone was collecting information about me in the most official-looking way possible, using fear and policy to make people cooperate. Karis tapped the last screenshot. It was a message from building security. Unknown mail asking for my name. Left when questioned. Time stamped from 2 nights earlier. Under the screenshots was a draft reply Lena had almost sent, confirming my Friday routine. She deleted it at the last second. If she'd hit send, whoever was asking would have known when I'd be alone. And then came the part that really terrified me. Chris didn't wait for my reaction. He stood up and locked the conference room door, like the hallway itself couldn't be trusted. We're filing an incident report, he said, right now. Lena was typing so fast, handshaking, documenting the fake domain, the voicemail, the security note. She told me to screenshot everything, forward it to my email, and change every password I'd reused even once. I nodded, but my mind kept trying to shrink it back into something manageable. I thought I was being talked about. I hadn't considered I was being watched. Within 20 minutes we were in the manager's office. It didn't feel like any serious talk I'd ever had at work. Less discipline, more emergency. They asked me where I lived, whether anyone had run into me outside, whether I'd noticed a car sitting too long in the lot. I hated how their questions sounded. Like this was a checklist they'd used before. Then the warning started. Don't walk out alone. Don't post your routine. If anyone asks about you, send them to me. People I barely spoke to suddenly appeared offering to escort me, offering rides, offering advice. Others kept their distance. It should felt supportive. Instead, it felt like the building had agreed I was in danger. That's when I realized something worse. More people knew. Mia admitted she'd heard whispers for days. Security said they'd mentioned a situation, but no one wanted to cause panic. Even HR had seen the fake email and assumed it was just a phishing attempt, until my name kept showing up. As we were printing the screenshots, Lena's phone buzzed again. A new message from an unknown number. Is my name closing tonight? Attached was a photo of our office entrance. Taken from the parking lot, time-stamped 10 minutes earlier. So I did the one thing I didn't want to do. That photo flipped a switch in me. I stopped treating this like workplace drama and started treating it like a threat. My manager called security, and I called the non-emergency police line from the conference room. Hands so sweaty I almost dropped my phone. While we waited, I made the hardest call. My ex, Darren. Not to accuse him, but because the timing was too perfect to ignore. He'd been the only person who knew my old schedule, and he'd shown up by coincidence once a few weeks earlier. When he answered, I kept my voice flat. "Did you contact my job? Did you ask anyone about me?" There was a pause, then a laugh that didn't sound amused. "Why would I do that?" he said. But he didn't sound surprised either. The officer couldn't prove anything from one photo, but he told me what I needed. Document, vary my routine, and don't go anywhere alone for a while. HR flagged the fake domain. Security added my name to a no-release list, and Chris and Lena agreed to shut down every side conversation and route all questions through one person. Nothing magically reset to normal, but the fog lifted. I wasn't the problem, I was the target. That night I stayed with my sister and deleted every post showing my location. Looking back, the scariest part wasn't even the rumor. If there's one thing I learned, it's that your instincts pick up the pattern before your brain admits it. When people start acting careful, when your name keeps surfacing in conversations you're not part of, don't just swallow the discomfort to seem chill. Ask direct questions, check facts, document everything. And if something feels like secrecy, don't assume it's gossip. It might be someone trying to control the story before you find the truth. Comment if your name has ever come up like this. What did you do and how did you handle it? And if you want the next part, subscribe. Because the next story is the moment I found out who started it.